3 easy steps for memorizing all the modes. If you've been following my tutorials over the last few weeks, you should be pretty aware of all the modal scales. However, you probably haven't memorized them, as there's quite a lot to remember. There is, however, an easy shortcut that helps you remember all the scales without too much work, and that's what we'll be looking at today. Step 1. Memorize the Ionian scale. The Ionian scale, also known as the major scale, is probably one of the most important scales you can learn anyway. This is why, if you were to look back over the tutorials we've looked at, I've actually covered the Ionian scale several times. However, this time we're going to memorize the Ionian scale and add 2 extra notes, one at the beginning and one at the end. You'll notice the first string, the bottom E string, and the top E string have the same pattern. So it's first finger, second finger, fourth finger. In effect, by learning this pattern, you're learning 3 of the 7 modal scales. And that's because by starting and finishing the scale on the first finger, you have one scale, with the second finger another scale, and the fourth finger a different scale again. So, if you were to start this new shape on the first finger and end it on the first finger, you have the Locrian scale. If you start it on the second finger and finish on the second finger, you have the Ionian scale. And if you were to start this scale on the fourth finger and end it on the fourth finger, you have the Dorian scale. So you can see from this pattern you've got 3 of the 7 modal scales. Right, let's move on to step 2. Step 2. Memorize the Lydian scale. As with the previous 3 scales, we simply memorize one scale, and that's the Lydian scale. And we add a note on before the scale and a note on after the scale. So we end up with a pattern on the bottom E string and the top E string that are identical. And that pattern is first finger, second finger, fourth finger. Now, just as we did with the previous scale, we can start the scale on the first finger and end it on the first finger, or on the second finger and end it on the second finger, or on the fourth finger, ending it on the fourth finger. And obviously, this now creates your second set of scales, and they are from the first finger to the first finger, the Phrygian scale, from the second finger to the second finger, the Lydian scale, and from the fourth finger to the fourth finger, the Mixolydian scale. This then is your second set of 3 scales, the Phrygian, the Lydian, and the Mixolydian scales. We now have 6 of the 7 modal scales, so we just have to learn the last scale, and that will be step 3. Step 3. Memorize the Aeolian scale. As with the Ionian scale, the Aeolian scale is a really important scale. This is your natural minor scale, and it's used a lot, and it's important for theory also. So it's well worth memorizing this scale well. Unfortunately, this scale doesn't fit into any of the previous patterns, so you have to memorize it as is on its own. Another complication that arises is it has 2 patterns, or there's 2 ways of playing it. You don't need to know both of these ways of playing it, so if you don't know either of them, just choose one that you feel most comfortable playing and memorize that one. However, if you've already memorized one, it's well worth learning the second method, just in case you find a use for it in the future. Once you can remember the Aeolian scale, you know all 7 of the modal scales. And it's just a case now of firmly fixing them into your mind so you can remember them permanently. And the best way to do this is to practice them. In order to encourage you to practice and to help you speed up and get the scales more fluently, I've created some simple exercises. In these exercises, you just have to play the modes with the metronome and piano. There'll be 2 bars of beats before the exercise starts, and then a bar between each scale. The exercise here is at 100 BPM, or beats per minute, that being the speed. However, if you find 100 beats per minute too slow or too fast, I'll be uploading a separate tutorial or exercise track that goes from 70 beats per minute to 250 beats per minute. This way you can slowly speed up the scales. To make sure you don't miss any new uploads, you can subscribe and enable notifications, and that way you'll be notified when I upload new tutorials. Right, here's the mode scale exercise at 100 beats per minute. I'll repeat it 3 times so you don't have to keep rewinding if you get it wrong. Thank you for watching this video, and if you enjoyed the tutorial, please subscribe and enable notifications. That way you'll always find out when I upload new tutorials.